Hi, my name's Will Erickson from momentumgroup.tech. I'm going to talk to you about testability in Bubble. So, building a testable app is really important because once you've got your app to work and you deploy it out into the real world with real users, you're going to get people starting to say things like this. My app is buggy and my devs can't seem to fix all of the bugs. In fact, they fix one thing and then they cause two more problems. They might say, is it easy to even test an app as a Bubble developer? How do I test my app? Or when we deploy new changes to the app, we experience regressions in other functionality. So testability is really important as a principle to consider when you're building your app so that later on you don't spend an exponentially large amount of time fixing problems that we could have foreseen. Another way of thinking about it is this. It's not good enough for your app to work most of the time. We need to know that it works and we need to show ourselves and our users that it works. So if you're building an app for somebody and it works most of the time, great. But when it doesn't work, that 1% failure will then cause a lot of time to debug the problem and then a lot of time to fix the problem and redeploy it, which we could have prevented by just showing it works or even showing that in some cases it doesn't work and pointing us to the problem. And so I would argue you really start at the beginning, right? So when you're defining your app structure, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Your page elements, your workflows, your database, your styles, the user roles that your app has, simplify these down. Do not bite off more complexity than you can chew. Multiple role apps, apps with complicated privacy rules with accounts, and just complex apps generally don't sort of 1 + 1 + 1 the amount of complexity, they multiply it. So if you have apps with these things, your complexity level could be 50 times or 100 times that of a very simple app. And we need to factor this in when we estimate work and when we do our technical design and our product design, so we don't bite off something that we cannot chew on the timeline and budget that our clients or that we as our own app developer expect of ourselves. So what I like to do is create scaffolding. And what I mean by scaffolding is think about ways that we can use Bubble to show how it's working to ourselves and to other people. Some examples of scaffolding that I would suggest are things like logging the results of a logical expression or a workflow onto the screen. So you might have a little text box, you might sort of put something in there to show how it's working, not just that it is working. Of course, you can access the debugger as well, and you can see those variables changing throughout the workflow, but it can be really helpful to see, yep, this is what's working and this is what's not working. You can also log those in a data table. You could log them in a URL parameter. But if you put them somewhere visible where you and others can see it, then you can more quickly diagnose the problem and get back on the horse and get that out into the real world where it needs to be. Another strategy could be creating a developer admin tool or a page where the developer can actually see how the table relationships are working, how the privacy rules are working, and not be guessing. So what I mean by this is that quite often in Bubble, you might find yourself going into the editor and searching for one data type and then finding a row and then copying that ID into another data type and finding that row and having a look at that field and going, is the flag this? Is the option set that? That whole thing is costly. It can take you 10, 15 minutes to do one example and find something. Now, if you find yourself doing that more than once, go make a page and do the same thing. Create those relationships on the page, and you can straight away see if that record that's the child record of the other one is actually showing what it should be showing or if it's not. And that will save you a lot of time. Another example could be creating a workflow to roll back changes that you made. So in the data, you might have a workflow that creates 50 other records of data and updates another piece of data and does something else. If you need to then go and manually delete all those things and reset those values in the data, that's going to take a long time to test. So create a workflow that rolls that back for that particular record so you don't have to do it manually. And then you can much more quickly increase your rate of testing. It's often easier, I find, as a dev to create a few extra screens and a few extra workflows, often behind a sign-in wall, only available to the user role, which is app admin or developer, that reveal the mechanics of the app rather than doing it all manually every time. If you make the app easy to test, you will save a lot of time on your end, and you'll save heaps of time because it's not only the time of developing it or fixing it, but it's when you have a problem and you can't find the problem, then you're going to be going in there for ages looking for it and debugging and getting really confused. And by setting up this scaffolding, you can really quickly diagnose the issue, find the solution, and move on. Another really important thing in testing is creating a test plan. So document, what are you testing? What is the expected outcome in particular scenarios? And create a spreadsheet or a productivity project management tool with those scenarios. Test the expected behavior of users, but also test what happens when they do unexpected behaviors, like they click the back button and they try again. So that's a quick overview of some principles of creating a testable app in Bubble. We explain this and more in a lot more detail in Momentum Group Academy. So check out momentumgrouptech.tech/academy, and I hope to see you there soon.